When this fort here was constructed back in the late 1800s, they built it battle-hardened and ready to take on the world. In fact, both shots of World War I and World War II were fired from this location. And a century on, Point Nepean still fights to share the stories of early Australia at war.
And it was both of those shots that signalled the very start of each of those world wars. The first shot of World War I rang out here on August 5th, 1914, when a warning shot crossed the bow of the German enemy, the SS Pfalz, which was successfully intercepted and refitted for the Royal Australian Navy. The second shot here was recorded within just hours of World War II's declaration, when the 6-inch Mark 7 gun fired its shot across the bay. This time it was a warning to an Australian ship that had failed to stop and identify itself. The tales of these narrow halls and corridors are lined with men thrust into a battle of global significance. Today, this ever-popular tourist attraction plays host to people from around the world, and yet is just a 13-kilometre drive from our home in Blairgowrie.
This fort also reminds us of how a very simple building material can be so strong and enduring. This week, our property will rise out of the ground with its beautiful concrete floor, albeit a little bit more glamorous than this, but just as resilient.
A new day begins with our concreters who have arrived to start our new concrete floor for the home. And they start by digging the trenches, which are the footings for the concrete slab itself. These footing trenches, filled with ultra-strength concrete, will soon bear the full weight of the home and the walls that support the entire finished structure. Which is in stark contrast to our concreters, who were meant to be pretty tough also, but were surprisingly shy.
You're scared, aren't you?
You're just going to make me laugh.
Keith, don't be shy.
I'm sure I've got to do something down there. Right. See how that works?
They're actually tough, but they're not tough at all. They don't even want to be on camera. They're absolute wimps. Nice guys though, they know what they're doing, so fills with confidence, they know what they're doing. In fact, our concreters and the concreting was one of the very first lessons on site in not prejudging a book by its cover.
You hear a lot of stories about them, how they're pretty tough and they're all brawn, but these guys are really good. You know, they're sort of got to know a bit of engineering. Not a simple job, not as straightforward as you might think being a concreter.
And there was plenty of friendly teasing on site too.
I am a little bit jealous of Mick's hair. In fact, we reckon he looks a lot like Fabio. What do you... Fabio, the cute concreter.
Fun and games aside, very importantly, it's Mick's role to read and interpret the engineering plans for the foundations and ensure the slab is built to specification, which he does with great precision. And it's this precision that would be necessary to satisfy our all-important building surveyor. who was soon booked for the first of many building inspections.
Spoken to Ken Weir, our building surveyor. He's coming out tomorrow to check the trenches that these guys are doing now. And then I think they're putting the steel mesh down on tomorrow afternoon, and Ken's coming back the following day to check the steel's done properly, and then on the Saturday we're going to do the pour.
With the industry just days away from shutting down on holidays for the Christmas break, this would be the very last week of construction possible. With no time left in the year, any missed deadline now would result in a month of costly delays to the project. But as the day rolls on, sunny skies look to be a blessing for smooth sailing ahead.
I think we should be in for a pretty easy couple of days.
And it's these ominous words that would later be the curse for what was yet to come.
Extra bits of wire in there for you. Beautiful.
Our steel delivery driver Peter is soon to arrive to drop off our nearly 2 tonnes of steel mesh and reinforcement.
I'll stick it through past Dunny.
Go on then.
Yeah, save your bloody carrying it.
All right. Job done.
Do you reckon you can crane it in?
Yes.
Yeah, mate. I can do anything.
And this steel reinforcement will be imperative to giving our concrete footings and slab its strength to support the future weight of the walls and home to come. With this crane operation complete, it was back into the construction, and the first of many building inspections we had to pass.
So what are your thoughts?
I expected a bit tidier.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And by the sound of his voice, we knew things weren't looking good.
Oh, you're on your way. But there's a fair bit to be done before we get to the poly and steel stage. The critical things, as we discussed along the design process, is the boxing, particularly on the boundaries.
First water, mate.
But
Water. We've just hit a water pipe. Here we go.
A burst water pipe later, and with the trenches not 100% finished to Ken's satisfaction, the inspection was booked too early and was a fail. The race was now on to get both the approval for the trenches tomorrow morning and the steel in the afternoon, which was the very last day of inspections available for the year. After working late into yesterday and with a 6 a.m. start on site to finish the trenches for the re-inspection, Ken soon arrives. As the building surveyor, Ken from KWA Building Permits is the legal oversight to the build, ensuring the home is constructed to very strict building codes and regulations. And approval on this inspection will be crucial to letting us lay the steel, then do the pour.
my role is to ensure the critical element of this is that we're sitting on the right foundation, but also that the edge beam is founded on natural material.
And getting these trenches perfect is very important to the structural integrity of our concrete slab, hopefully soon to be poured.
Critical thing about the concrete is it's the whole supporting structural element. If it fails, the rest of it above's not going to hold it together.
And after yesterday's inspection failure, we nervously await his results, because any failure now would mean the site would be shut down for a month of costly delays.
Yesterday it was a bit premature, and the boys had a bit more work to do before we actually get to this stage, which, as you can see behind us, is nice and neat.
And with that said, this time we get the tick of approval.
The beam layout matches the engineer's plans, and obviously have to be straight so that the reinforcement, once it's placed in the beams, has its minimum cover, and we'll check all the reinforcement on that later this afternoon.
And with no time to waste until his final inspection tonight, we're straight back into it. The boxing is drilled and hammered into place, which will form the mould for the concrete to sit in, before being removed after it cures. Next, the plastic sheeting is laid over the trenches. which is a moisture barrier that protects the concrete from the ground, stopping rising dampness and water being drawn up through the slab and into the home. The insertion of plastic stools and Y12 3-bar steel reinforcement is then laid in the trenches to give additional strength to the footings, which is then overlaid further with reinforcement mesh sheets and all tied together to form one big steel structure.
Is that lined up with that one roughly?
Yeah. Look at the sheet on the ground, right?
Go down lower.
With just a few hours until Ken arrives again for the final inspection for the day and for this year, and with this steel reinforcement still not yet complete, an almighty storm fast approaches. And as hope starts to fade for our final deadline tonight, we shelter from the storm.
What's the go right now? Well, we're sheltering from the rain. It's wet. That's what's happening.
With the sad realisation that a month of work stoppage is now, most likely, a reality. Although these same clouds do nothing to slow the gears of progress turning at the Wholesome Concrete plant, who, with a busy schedule supplying most of the state and country with concrete, never get to slow down.
Wholesome annually produce about 4.5 million cubic metres across Australia for various projects. A plant like this would typically do about 50,000 cubic metres per annum, and in a Victorian business we'd do up around about 600,000 cubic metres. So significant quantities.
With concrete being one of the most widely used and strongest construction materials this day and age, by itself it's actually quite a brittle product.
It is brittle. It's got a high compressive strength but a very weak lateral strength. So what we do is, what a customer would do is they put reinforced steel throughout that concrete, and that would give it a higher flexural strength.
In essence, concrete alone has very little lateral or tensile strength. So without the steel in our slab for it to bind to, then the hardened concrete would very easily crack and crumble over time. In contrast to this, concrete's natural ability is its compressive strength, measured by MPa.
MPa is a measure called megapascals, and that is a compressive strength of the concrete. So we'll take a sample of that concrete as it's being poured, take it to our laboratory, cure it for a certain amount of time, usually 3 days and 7 days, and then we'll actually put it in a machine, crush it, and we'll measure at what force it takes to crush that cylinder. And that will give us an indication of megapascals or MPa.
The other consideration to make is the way we help control naturally occurring cracks in the future polished concrete floor.
It'd be perfect if you could look at a slab and see no cracks at all, but the reality is you're dealing with a natural product, and all we can do is minimise the cracking.
And the simplest solution for this is to use bigger stones in the concrete mix.
It's called micro strain, so the lower the micro strain, the less shrinkage, you're going to get. So we use a 20mm stone with a polished slab, you're going to get less cracking than using a 7mm stone.
Being the active ingredient in cement powder, limestone is a naturally occurring mineral that is mined, heated and turned into powder. It's this cement powder that is the key binding agent in concrete, along with sand and stone aggregate, which together cooks through an exothermic or heat-creating chemical reaction before it gradually cools into a hardened concrete product. And it's the Romans who first discovered this fact nearly 2,000 years ago, when concrete, or Roman concrete at the time, using volcanic ash, was first invented. Incredible structures that still survive today, like the Colosseum, famous for its gladiatorial battles, or the Rome Pantheon, a holy site dedicated to its gods, are proof to concrete's strength and longevity. Although with the fall of the Roman Empire, the recipe for concrete was lost for the next millennia. Flash forward 2,000 years, and the slow pace of brick and natural stone construction was soon eclipsed with the reinvention of concrete in the late 1800s. This time, cities like Melbourne started to grow at a rapid pace, as buckets and barrels of liquid stone or concrete aggregate moulded the city skyline we see today. Buildings like Eureka Tower and the monolithic skyscrapers throughout are all testament to this incredible product. And it's this incredible product we're still yet to pour. As the storm starts to clear, the last of the reinforcement goes in, and we cross our fingers and hope that it meets with Ken's approval.
When you've been doing this for as long as I have, you sort of get a gut feel when you have a look at it from the entrance gate, as opposed to the first time I came here, and you can see clearly everything's neatly placed, the laps are all good. Everything's all chaired up on the right height chairs, right size reinforcement. It all looks good.
Overall happy?
Yep, always happy.
And with those magical words, we pass the inspection. And the pour for tomorrow is approved, with just minutes to go until the final deadline was up. We awake early the next morning to prepare for the battle ahead.
And it's the very first truck for the day. Pretty much bang on 8:30. It all begins, let's do it.
With concrete trucks booked just 15 minutes apart, and with the costs for a team of concreters, a concrete pump and operators, plus over 100 tonnes of concrete ordered, the high stress of the day to make sure everything runs like clockwork is not only imperative to the budget for this stage, but also to ensure there is consistency in the concrete pour before our slab starts curing.
So the cement's hydrating and it's using up the water in the concrete, and that the concrete curing is effectively the hydration of the cement. So as soon as we batch it, you've got a certain amount of time before that hydration process really starts to kick in, and then once it starts hydrating, it becomes more difficult to work with.
With the stage set and everything right on cue, the concrete pour begins.
Well, what a week it was, and boy did we come close to almost missing our Christmas deadline for the slab, but we persevered and we made it. We're going to keep this water on now for about the next week or so and just hope it cure nicely, and
I'll see you next week. Next week, we start building our polystyrene home. We see how these blocks are made, and we visit another incredible home.
There's this feeling of I'm not really 82.
Yeah, I know. He's 82.